Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting for June 18th, 2019. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Pullen.
Mr. Galloway. Mr. Brasky.
Here.
Mr. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Dents.
Here.
Mr. Rocco.
Let the record show Mr. Galloway had a family commitment this evening, and Mr. Rocco is stuck at work, so they send their regrets. We're going to have a couple presentations, this evening. We're going to start with, I know our last meeting was, the actual night of the meeting was a blue mass and a lot of ceremonies regarding police officers back May 20th, I guess it was. And so this was sort of, at least for the police department awards, this was something that's sort of been planned and kind of got pushed back. We had an item on our agenda in the springtime, which you may have heard of, that took up a lot of our time and filled the room a lot of nights. So we kept sort of having to kind of move this back, but I'm glad we're getting a chance to do it tonight, and thank you all for being here. We're going to turn this over to our Chief of Police. There's going to be a slight reversal on your agenda. It says award ceremony for Falls Township Police Department, and then it says presentation from the Falls Township Police Department to the students who participated in the Chief for a Day program. We're going to reverse that. So we're going to do the Chief for a Day first. And Chief Wilcox, microphone's yours.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, good evening. Good evening, moms, dads, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, and friends. And welcome to our third annual Chief for the Day. This is the end of our program here. Could I just have a show of hands from our chiefs here that are here tonight? Come on, you can do better with that with your hands. Come on, stick your hands up. Very good. Thank you. We're well represented here tonight. The schools that are represented, we have Eleanor Roosevelt, we have Fallsington Elementary, we have Manor Elementary, we have Penn Valley, we have Oxford Valley, and Penn Rin. We have 6 schools that are represented here. And for the newcomers here, this program was started 3 years ago. And was started under the premise that giving the kids the opportunity before they transitioned into middle school, we wanted them to have the opportunity to experience what I do and what our police officers do. And to say the least, it's worked very, very well. With that being said, the chiefs, they have a program. I'll run everybody through this, how it works. I'll go to the school. Let's say I went to Eleanor Roosevelt. I'll pick the student up at Eleanor Roosevelt. We'll have some small talk. We'll go outside. I'll ask if they have any brothers or sisters. I'll ask what's her favorite subject in school. The favorite thing is I asked them what they went for lunch. And they picked, the favorite of this year was Chick-fil-A by far, beat everybody else out. So we'll talk to that. I'll ask them if they have any pets. I'll ask them what their favorite subject is. And after we get to know each other a little bit, they'll get in the car and we'll go over to Judge Vislowski's office. We'll go into the judge's office. The judge will swear them in. Unfortunately, the judge isn't here this evening, but she'll swear them in. And I hope that the chiefs, you showed your mom and dad your oaths that you took, okay. And they signed their oaths. We leave there. We go in. Then I say to them, are you allowed to go to Dunkin' Donuts? And nobody turned Dunkin' Donuts down. So we go to Dunkin' Donuts, and I'll say, no coffee. I said, pick out your favorite drink, and they get a donut. So we leave there, and we go into headquarters. Then we go in the front lobby, and I show them how the telephone works and how people come down and they make a complaint. Then we go in, and they meet with our girls. Then they take their photograph, and everybody has showed your parents your badge. It says Chief for the Day. We do that, then we leave there, and then we meet with our 2 lieutenants. They happen to be sitting here in the front, Lieutenant Ward, Lieutenant Pletnick, and they do scenarios. Now, their eyeballs get very big when they have to ask these questions, but I say to them, I said, these are just the things that I go through every day. I'll talk to the lieutenants, and I'll ask them what's going on. So they give them 2 scenarios. Lieutenant Ward will give them a scenario, 2 scenarios. Lieutenant Pletnick will do the same thing. They'll answer those questions. Then we'll leave there. We'll go up and I'll show them where our computer room is located. I'll show them that. We'll start a tour around the building. I'll show them where our patrol comes in, how the patrol, where they come in at night, where they do the reports. I'll run them through everything there. Then we'll go up to the detectives. And I have to say that our detectives did one heck of a job. They've showed them videos of an actual holdup. They've lifted prints. They fumed prints. They did a special thing called where they take a camera in a dark room and they'll take a flashlight and they'll go up and down like this. I think it's called printing, I think it's called. Don't hold me to that. They taught them that, and we'll go through all these things, and the detectives take a long time in doing that with them. And they lifted prints. Good evening, Judge. So then we'll leave there, and then we'll start the tour around the building. So then I'll take them, we'll go into the arsenal, and I'll show them where our weaponry is and where we keep all the ammunition. We'll talk to them about gun safety. I'll call the sergeant in off the street. The sergeant will come in, and he'll hold roll call. He'll call the officers in from there, and they'll sit in an actual roll call. At that point in time, the sergeant will instruct one of his patrol people to take the chief for the day out to their car, and they'll go all through the car from soup to nuts with everything. Then they'll come back in, and then I'll take them to our evidence room and I'll talk to them about the chain of evidence. They absorb an excruciating amount of information in a short period of time, but they did very, very good. So then we go back into our processing room. We talk to them about the holding cell. We talk to them about where the police cars come in. We show them how the gate opens up. We'll go through all that. We'll show them how the emergency buttons are. In some cases, some of the officers showed them how to process prisoners and how to roll prints. They went through every single step of the way. In fact, on one day, we had a video where we called the judge, and the judge answered, and we did an actual video arraignment where the judge is in her office, and the chief for the day was sitting there. And it was a really cool thing. It worked out good. So then we leave there, and then we go in the back, and I take them through and I show them the rest of the building and how it is. Then we go back into our evidence room. They see their eyeballs get very, very big because this evidence is unbelievable. We show them every bit. We show them how we have to log evidence. Once again, we talk about the chain of evidence. We do everything. We show them where the narcotics are. We show them things that most people in this room will never, ever experience. And your chief for the days did. And we told them that nobody else will get to see these things. We don't let anybody see these things, but we walk them through this. And I have to tell you should be very proud of your boys and girls. Not only are they polite, they were astute, they asked good questions, they were attentive, they really did a nice job. And the good thing about this is I didn't pick them out. They were picked out by their teachers and I guess the principals, and they all had input into it, but in no way did I have any input in picking out any students here. My main thing during the whole program was to make sure that they had a good time. I was on pins and needles the whole time because are you okay? Are you having fun? And I went through this over and over and over. Some of the students were very, very quiet. Some were extremely talkative. Some were asked great, great questions. And I couldn't be happy enough with the program. It just worked out very, very well. And you should be very, very proud. I have to thank our detectives. I have to thank everybody in our police department. They went above and beyond. Judge Vislowski was an important part in this whole thing. Without her, she's kind of the glue that holds it together. And Mrs. Seiler, she did an inordinate amount of work here, changing schedules back and forth. And she really did a lot of work. And they're the two main cogs in the wheel here. Without these two people here, I'm dead in the water. But it really worked out very, very well. And I hope the chiefs really enjoyed themselves. And as I told them all, The reason I do this program is that someday they can look back, and they look back at this program and they say, you know what, those police officers are okay. They're really human beings. Yes, they wear a uniform, they carry a badge and a gun, but they're okay. They're nice people. And that's the point we try to get. We tried to show them a different side of us. And it worked very, very well. And I'm very happy with the program. Hopefully we'll be able to do it next year again. But it's just a fabulous program that works very, very well. With that being said, I will be giving out certificates this evening. And at the conclusion of this, everybody's welcome back for refreshments and some cookies and all. So Judge, would you mind coming up here? Chiefs, we're going to call out your name, and the judge will hand you your certificate. Adriana Cipollini? Is she here?
Chief.
I guess she's not here.
Hey, Chief. If you don't mind, could you use the microphone just so that when this is on the record, the people at home as they're watching can hear the kids' names?
Nasir Sneed? Monica Olcheski? Ryan Palumbo? Boy, I'm striking out here.
A lot of people on vacation.
Jason McNulty? I know Jason's here.
This is the existing deed, and
James McCarthy?
Taxes.
Adrienne Knowledge Bay? Taylor Steely? Liliana Wheatley? Liliana Wheatley? Gavin Hartley? Michael Snodgrass. Snogness. I'm sorry, I'm killing that name.
I don't see him.
Caleb Harris. Julian Nicole. Simone Petit. Giselle Simon. Nicholas, I know I'm going to kill this. Hernashak. Is Nicholas here? Good thing he isn't, because I just killed his name. And finally, Jaden Klein. Thank you, Chiefs. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and you've really made this program successful. Thank you to moms and dads for letting them to participate in this program. And without you, without the board giving me consent, this doesn't work. Thank you very much. If the Chiefs, if you could just follow. Oh, would all the Chiefs come up and take a picture with?
Transition from potential future law enforcement and emergency services. We're going to transition to sort of the bigger guys and ladies. I do see Ms. Seiler, I think, is going to be sort of the Pied Piper and leading people on the way to their refreshments. Little Chiefs. Okay. Are their families allowed to come? Yeah, so go ahead. Family, I think families can go too.
Yeah.
Chief?
Chief.
Yeah, families can go too. There's only, yeah. No, I was just trying to clarify who was allowed to go.
Mr. Chairman, member of the board, tonight we have our awards committee. As a result of our resurrecting our awards committee again, we went back several years and tried to give recognition to incidents that deserved it. When you see that on the average we handle somewhere between 19 and 20,000 calls a year, we're only honoring 17 this evening. And the significance of that is that these awards are being chosen by their own peers, not by the administration, not by myself. These are, the awards committee sat down, they went through all this, they did painstaking study, and they come out with these 17 what they feel that deserve recognition. I want to welcome our sheriff back there, Sheriff Worrell, his deputy chief, and the sheriff's department, and Officer Luna. Welcome. Thank you for coming this evening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read out each one of these incidents, and the people involved, I ask you to stand, and at the conclusion of this tonight, we'll give out all the awards back when you leave here. The first incident is on May 11th, 2012, at 03:10 hours. Officer Colleen, I'm sorry to bring this up. This is a painful incident with you. Officer Colleen was responding to a burglary alarm when his patrol unit was violently struck head-on by a vehicle which had crossed the center line on Tyburn Road. The impact was so severe that the frame of the police vehicle became distorted and trapped Officer Colleen, who was severely injured inside the vehicle. Fuel began to leak onto the roadway. Fire ignited beneath the vehicle. Corporal Steve Langan and Officer Bruce Redunda responded and found the door inoperable due to the crush damage. Without the aid of any tools, the officers worked in tandem to physically peel back the metal door and frame and rescue Officer Colleen before the vehicle could be engulfed in flames. As a result of that, a Police Life Saving is awarded, hereby awarded to Corporal Steve Langan and Officer Bruce Redunda. The second incident that we want to talk about tonight is attempted suicide by cop. On July 23rd, a distraught male subject, self-medicated with alcohol and pills, armed himself with a knife and contemplated suicide. Unable to complete the act, he decided to call 911, and the responding officers, he wanted the officers that shoot him, but suicide by cop scenario. The responding officers showed restraint and poise as the man made statements that he wanted to be killed by them and that it was going to happen tonight. In a calm and professional manner, the officers equipped themselves with less lethal tools, split into teams, and formed an interlocking perimeter. The perimeter allowed a buffered description of the situation while protecting the nearby residents and businesses. A unit citation is hereby awarded to Corporal Victoria Crozier, Corporal David Aarons, Detective Kathy Coppin, Officer Howard Shook, retired Officer Howard Shook, Officer John Yeager, Officer John Caesar, Officer Ricky Krotz, Officer Matt Colleen, and Officer Stephanie Metterly. Could those officers please stand? On April 24th, 2016, FTD officers responded to 1410 Sweetbriar Road in Morrisville to investigate a report of a 2-year-old in cardiac arrest. It was determined through investigation that the child was the victim of blunt force trauma and was being kicked in the head and torso numerous times. The child's mother was arrested and convicted of a third-degree homicide and sentenced to 12 to 40 years in state prison. As a result of this investigation, a police meritorious service commendation is hereby awarded to Detective Kathy Coppin. Armed robbery homicide. On June 3rd, 2016, at 09:59 hours, FTD officers were dispatched to the Pennsbury Pharmacy on New Falls Road to report of a robbery shooting. One of the robbery subjects was shot and killed by the pharmacist inside the business. Responding officers immediately spotted the getaway driver in the parking lot, and he was apprehended without incident. The following officers are hereby awarded the police unit citation. Sergeant Brian White, Corporal Mike Callahan, Officer Jonathan Caesar, Officer Ed Elmore, Bucks County Sheriffs, Deputy Mitchell, Deputy Kessler, and Deputy Parker. Could everybody stand, please? On November 11, 2016, a child abuse investigation was initiated, which resulted in the collection of thousands of items of evidence of child pornographic and abuse at the Midway Trailer Park. The evidence in that case was so voluminous that it literally took months of effort to organize and catalog it all. William Thomas was arrested and convicted of raping multiple children and sentenced to 60 to 120 years in state prison. The following police personnel are hereby awarded a police unit citation. Sergeant Chris Clark, Sergeant Anthony Finelli, Detective Matt Tom Cho, and Administrative Assistant Renee Thompson. On May 22nd, 2016, 23:49 hours, Falls Township officers were dispatched to respond to an unconscious fall victim. Responding officers found a clinically dead female in the living room of the residence and performed CPR until pulse and breathing were reestablished. The following officers are hereby awarded the Police Life Saving Award: Corporal Gerard Piasecki, Corporal Nick Pino, and Officer Nicole Davini. Traffic stop, aggravated assault. On April 13, 2017, Falls Township officer Stephanie Medley observed a vehicle on Lincoln Highway with expired tags. The vehicle failed to stop initially when Medley activated the lights and siren on her patrol unit. The driver was instructed to step out of the vehicle and to perform field sobriety tests. Backup officers arrived. The driver attempted to pull a loaded 9mm gun from his waistband, struggled with the officers until he was taken into custody. The officers involved were able to take the subject into custody without using deadly force. The following officers are hereby awarded a police unit citation: Sergeant Marshall Belinsky, Corporal Nick Pino, and Officer Stephanie Medley. Drive-by shooting. On September 12, 2017, Falls Township officers responded to Penwood Crossing Clubhouse leasing office for a report of a drive-by shooting. An unknown subject had driven by and fired multiple shots into the office of the park, which was occupied by staff. A perimeter was quickly established along with the incident command by Lieutenant Nelson Whitney and Sergeant Brian White. As detectives responded, patrol units began to canvass the area. The shooter was subsequently located in G section of Penwood Crossing, armed with a loaded handgun and expressing suicidal intentions. The shooter was physically subdued by Sergeant White and Sergeant Ray Finelli and Marshall Officer Bo Luna. The officers involved were able to take the subject into custody without using deadly force. The following officers are awarded police unit citations: Lieutenant Nelson Whitney, Sergeant Brian White, Sergeant Ray Finelli, Corporal Victoria Crozier, Corporal Gerard Piasecki, Officer Matt Colleen, Officer Mike Parness, Officer Jim Sambodi, Officer Bruce Redunda, Officer Ricky Krotz, Detective Kathy Coppin, Detective Steve Reeves. A meritorious award is awarded to Brian White, Ray Finelli, and Bo Luna. Officer Bo Luna. On September 13, 2017, at 09:37 hours, Falls Township officers responded to a resident for a report of a vehicle having driven into a house. The suicidal subject drove his vehicle into the house occupied by his estranged spouse after having self-inflicted deep cuts into the arteries in his arm. Responding officers evacuated the home, applied tourniquets to the subject, and saved him from bleeding to death. The subject was physically fought against the efforts of the officer. The following officers are awarded police unit citations: Lieutenant Nelson Whitney, Officer George Thomas, Officer Dave Gold, Officer Brian Fisher, and Officer Ryan Murphy. Drug delivery resulting in death. On May 4, 2017, officers responded to a heroin overdose death. The resulting investigation took months to complete and involved every member of the detective division. At its culmination, the investigation led to the arrest and conviction of the drug dealer for drug delivery resulting in death. The following officers are hereby awarded police unit citations: Sergeant Ray Finelli, Detective Kathy Kopman, Detective Steve Reeves, Detective Dennis O'Connell, Detective Greg Small, Detective Matt Tomcho, and Detective John Vella. Everybody just engage me a minute. I'm getting caught out there. Burglary in progress. On January 21st, 2018, Falls Township officers were dispatched to a commercial burglary in progress on Cabot Boulevard. An earlier burglary at the same location had resulted in the theft of $27,000 high-end construction supplies. Responding officers entered the site, apprehended 2 subjects, and later identified a third who had fled. The following officers are hereby awarded police unit citations: Sergeant Anthony Finelli, Officer Bruce Redunda, Officer Jeff Omler, and Officer Chris Iacona. On January 29, 2018, Falls Township officers were dispatched to investigate a report of an abandoned 911 call in Fairless Hills. Officer Jim Sambodi responded and located a vehicle running with a pipe funneling the exhaust into the vehicle. Officer Zambodi smashed the window, pulled the unconscious occupant to safety. Officer Zambodi is hereby awarded the Police Life Saving Award. Robbery. On May 30th, 2018, at 10:25 hours, Falls Township officers were dispatched to the Sunoco station on New Falls Road for an attempted vehicle theft. The male subject entered the vehicle of a mother pumping gas and attempted to steal the vehicle while the woman's young child was in the car. The mother grabbed hold of the clothing of the subject as he began to pull away and yelled that the child was in the car. The subject fled the area on foot. Officer Elmore and K-9 Monty tracked the subject down to where he was hiding in a drain pipe and took him into custody. As a result of that, Officer Elmore is hereby awarded the Police Meritorious Service Commendation and his dog Monty. Drug investigation. In fall of 2018, members of the Falls Township Detective Division were involved in a long-term drug investigation involving multiple jurisdictions in 2 states known as Operation Wrapped Up. The investigation resulted in 11 subjects being arrested, the seizure of 2,510 bags of heroin, and the forfeiture of a motor vehicle. The following officers are hereby awarded the police unit citation: Sergeant Ray Finelli, Detective Catherine Coppin, Detective Steve Reeves, Detective Dennis O'Connell, Detective Greg Small, Detective Matt Tomcho, Detective John Vella. Armed robbery. On January 7th, 2012, shortly before 22:45 hours, Corporal Victoria Crozier was performing surveillance in the area of Breezy Acres because of an increased criminal activity in the area. While doing so, she observed a male subject by the Red Raven Bar who was acting suspiciously in the parking lot. Before entering the Exxon station, Corporal Corporal Crozier observed the male subject attempted to rob the store clerk at night point and then ran back to his vehicle and flee the area with lights turned off. Corporal Crozier followed the subject and took him into custody. The vehicle was stopped and the subject was taken into custody at gunpoint and charged with robbery and related charges. A police unit citation is hereby awarded to Corporal Victoria Crozier, Corporal Mike Callahan, Officer Jeff Owen. Medical emergency on March 9, 2019, 1921 hours. Falls Township officers were dispatched to the resident on Cabot Boulevard for a report of a woman in childbirth. The child was born with no pulse and not breathing. Officers responding, medics from Levittown Fairless Hills Fire performed CPR to the baby. The following officers are hereby awarded the Life-Saving Award: Corporal Nick Pino, Officer Ryan Murphy. Finally, attempted homicide. On April 4, 2019, at 15:17 hours, Falls Township officers were dispatched to a residence in Fairless Hills after a 10-year-old girl called 911 to report that a male subject was choking her sister, and she fought the sister. Excuse me, everyone. Sergeant Chris Clark and Officer James Sambodi arrived to find the front door locked and screams coming from inside the residence. Officer Sambodi kicked the front door open and both officers entered the home. Upon doing so, the officers observed the male subject on top of the female, strangling and violently shaking her while she was struggling to breathe. Sergeant Officer Sambodi tackled the male subject to remove him from the subject and took him into custody. The quick and decisive actions of both officers saved the woman's life. Sergeant Chris Clark and Officer Officer James Sambodi are hereby awarded the Police Meritorious Service Commendation. Everyone, that concludes our award ceremony. If everybody would stop back, I'll give the certificates and the pins out to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, before we, first off, I want to thank the chief, and I want to interrupt people as they're heading back to enjoy, obviously very well-deserved refreshments. I want to thank the chief and the committee that the police department have at identifying and recognizing those awards, those rather officers who deserve those awards. Since the chief is already here, we wanted to sort of skip to what usually we do. It's sort of the end, which is the police department report. So allow him to do that, and then you can kind of go grab any food if there's any left over there.
Mr. Harvey, members of the board, I have very good news for you tonight. The gentleman, I'm using that word loosely.
Yeah.
The man responsible for at least 2 of the holdups on West Trenton Avenue has been apprehended. He's incarcerated right now in Ewing Township. We are, as we speak, are getting warrants for his arrest. He's been identified through photo lineup. We definitely have the right man for that.
That's good.
As far as we have 5 search warrants in progress for the suspect, for the gentleman who down at the park who's doing some indecent exposure type things down there, and we have that person looks like that could end up in an arrest very, very shortly. So that's all good news for us.
All right. So any questions for the chief?
That person wasn't already arrested, the guy in the park?
He's incarcerated right now in a Megan's Law violation.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't arrested for that. Right now,
Gotcha.
Sergeant Finelli is that he has...
But he is in custody. He's not out
He's
on
in
the
custody.
loose.
He's in
Okay,
custody
that's
as
what I
we
was
speak, and 5 search warrants are being served. So we're ID in them right now.
Gotcha.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
I was getting cotton mouth.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Have a nice evening.
Take care. Thank you. You too. All right. The first formal item on our agenda is public comment. Mr. Gray has handed me the sheets. There are no names on it. So we're going to move to item number 2, which is certificate of appropriateness. Okay. This is for 3 South Main Street. Mr. Gray?
Yes, certificate of appropriateness for 3 South Main Street. They are re-roofing the main portion, re-roofing the main portion of the Gambrel roof house. This has been reviewed and approved by the HARB board. Board is asked to consider this a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
No, this is straightforward.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, public comment? See no hands. All right, is there a motion to grant the certificate of appropriateness for a new roof at 3 South Main Street?
Yes, so moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
We waiving the permit fees
That was
as
the
well?
next thing.
Yes,
Go ahead.
we did receive a request from Erica Armour, Executive Director for Historic Fallsington. In her letter to the township, they are respectfully requesting to waive the fees for the building re-roofing project. Board is asked to consider waiving the fees.
Okay.
I'll make that motion as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, item number 3 is consider awarding the township insurance policy for the period of June 18th, 2019 to June 18th, 2020. This is property, general liability, and public liability. Mr. Gray?
Yes, Travelers has provided the insurance for the township for the last 12 out of the 17 years. Last year's insurance policy was $311,254. If the township were to choose Travelers, this would result in a 5% increase over last year. This would be $327,195. In addition, as a comparison to other municipalities, Middletown and Bristol Falls is lower for this insurance premium. The board is asked to consider this policy for the upcoming year. In addition, representatives of Vaughn Insurance are here for any questions the board may have.
Ms. Vaughn, would you mind just give us an idea? Obviously, nobody ever wants to see an increase, although it's clearly, it happens. Is there anything like in particular that that's causing it, or just market forces, or microphone? Sorry. Sure. Yeah, please, just so it's on the record.
Hi.
Hello.
And my name's Ann Smith. I handle the day-to-day servicing and marketing of the insurance for the township. The major reason for the increase in the insurance this year is driven by the township's loss experience.
Excuse me, Ann, could you speak into the microphone?
Oh. The major reason for the increase in the insurance this year is really driven by the township's loss experience. The property loss experience over the last 3 years was about 194%, which sounds really bad, but the total losses really for the property were about $130,000, but your property premium is fairly low. What travelers will do is kind of spread that premium over the other lines, so that your experience, so that your loss experience or your premium can manage that loss experience. The other major lines where you have losses, you have 5 open liability claims, employment-related practices, slip and falls, 5 of them totaling $226,000, which you can see in the packet, but those are still open. So that causes travelers to have some concern about both frequency on the liability, and also severity. So that's why they're looking at an increase.
Okay.
We did do a marketing effort this year. We did approach a new market to Pennsylvania for the public sector business on your behalf, and they did come in fairly close. And we also marketed to I think 4 other carriers that are big public sector writers on your behalf. And they were much higher than Travelers.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Other questions for Mrs. Smith?
No.
Good job on the report. It kind of breaks down everything. You know, even the questions I had, they're all in here.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So we would be looking to award township insurance policy for this coming year, June 18, 2019, June 18, 2020, to Travelers in the amount of $327,195. Any public comment? See one hand. Is there a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. No, we're opening public comment. Yeah.
Blowers went back there, it's a little, or I'm getting a little whichever. I just wanted to know, will this policy cover any legal issues and/or lawsuits related to Elcon? Because we do want the board to keep pushing Elcon out.
No.
Yeah, the answer is no.
Pardon?
The answer is no.
No.
This would deal with things, for example, some of the property losses that you heard might be things like police cars that are totaled in accidents, things like that. Any vehicles here that are involved, if we've never really had, knock wood, like a public works vehicle that was involved in something serious where it gets totaled. It's really for property. It's very similar to the property insurance you may have in your house. You know, those kinds of things. Somebody slips and trips on your sidewalk or something, your insurance covers you. That's kind of what this insurance is about.
Okay, do we have any insurance that covers the township?
No, that's not really something covered by insurance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, is there a motion then to award the township insurance policy to Travelers in the amount of $327,195?
Yes, so moved. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Thank you again, Mrs. Vaughn, Mrs. Smith, for your work. We appreciate your help. Item 4 is consider finalizing the award, changing the wording here. Consider granting the manager authority to finalize the award for the bid for the Quaker Penn Park electrical project. Mr. Gray.
The 30-day responsible contractors review period for the Quaker Penn Park electrical project will be completed after tonight's board meeting. In order to continue the process, the board is requested to consider allowing the township manager to finalize the award for the Quaker Penn electrical project contingent upon a successful outcome of Jones Engineering's responsible contractor review.
Okay. Comments or questions from board members for Mr. Gray or Mr. Jones?
Pete, you'll obviously update us
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
beforehand. Okay.
Yes.
Is it taking longer than normal, or did?
No, it should be the next day or two.
Because we voted on it at our last meeting?
Yeah,
right?
at the last meeting, we did a notice of intent to award, then we had to go through the 30-day review
So
period.
that was the 20th of May, so we have to wait 2 days? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
None.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment? See no hands. Is there a motion then to grant the manager the authority to finalize the award for the bid for the Quaker Penn Park electrical project?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. Item 5 is consider adopting ordinance amending Chapter 209. I know, yeah, Mr. Gray's pointing at you, Ms. Gallagher, so I knew I was going to go to you anyway, but I think Mr. Gray was panicking I was going to go to him. So what are we amending here?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. As the board will recall, at the end of 2018, a comprehensive zoning rewrite was passed. As is the case with these large rewrites, we found some things that needed to be corrected as we implemented the provisions there. A lot of this is just cleaning up language in the existing ordinance. The big change has to do with the notice that is provided to neighbors for zoning hearing board applications. The municipality's planning code allows the township to determine what neighbors receive notice for what types of applications. Under the prior version of the code, for non-residential applications, neighbors were notified within a quarter mile, and then for residential applications, it was the contiguous parcels. We changed that to be for all applications, neighbors within 500 feet. We quickly learned that that would require significant numbers of notifications for very minor applications, for driveways, fences, that sort of thing. So in reviewing this with township staff, we are recommending going back to the prior notice requirements, which do allow the township to require greater notice for any application that it deems would be appropriate.
Okay. All right, yeah, this is especially in areas like Levittown, Farrell's Hills, areas where a lot of homes are pretty close together. Somebody just wants to put in a driveway, as Ms. Gallagher said, and all of a sudden now you're notifying people that are over a block away for something that is really, it seemed excessive to have to notify dozens and dozens and dozens of properties for, somebody that wants to, widen their driveway. Obviously their neighbors would be notified, people across the street, but there's no real reason to notify somebody who's more than a street away for somebody that's something that minor. But as Ms. Gallagher said, if something does come up that we feel deserves greater notice for people in an area, we are permitted to sort of require them to notify a much broader area. So, comments or questions for Ms. Gallagher?
No.
And again, that is some of the other things are, again, minor changes, some typos. One of the sections was supposed to be 3,600, it ended up being 360. So just little things like that, typos that happen. So, and this has been advertised.
It has,
It
yes.
has to be ordinance 19-2. Okay. All right. Any public comment needed? See no hands. Is there a motion then to adopt ordinance 19-2?
Yes, I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 19-2.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, minutes for the May 20th meeting. Comments or questions for Mrs. Pullen?
I wasn't at the meeting, but I did see it. Excellent minutes as always, Mrs. Pullen.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
It's always entertaining.
Is there a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
It's just 3 of us. You saw it, right? So,
Yeah, I did watch.
Yeah, so, all right. Okay. All right, engineers report. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, board members. The month of May engineers report shows that we've had one application for new land development. That's for the MLH exploration project. That project's been around multiple times with different amendments. This we understand to be the final amendment to include a large greenhouse building on the site in the KIPC. That's under review, and we anticipate it to come to the Planning Commission in July. We've had one new earth disturbance application submitted for the KPK development project, for lack of a better term, and that is to expand the operations of the Koretsky land reclamation to across Penn Valley Road to include that quarry. And then we've had 3 general cell tower applications submitted for various antenna replacements and various earth disturbance activities. We have 15 ongoing land development projects. They're identified in the report with updates identified with red text. We have 27 earth disturbance projects ongoing at various stages of approval and construction, again with updates identified with the red text. And in terms of the township projects, we have an update for the South Olds Boulevard culvert. We met with a representative of the county, Bucks County, who gave us a positive response and support for the idea to apply for the grant to include some improvements to the golf course. So we feel that that's going to, make us more favorable in terms of our competitiveness for the grant, and he'll offer us a letter of support for the project. So that's an ongoing, as I say in the engineer's report, that's an ongoing process. We're jumping the hurdles as they come up. We have a good cost-benefit analysis that we've dialed in, and that's been submitted to PEMA. And so we're now embarking on the E-grant process. So there'll be more to come, probably fairly regular updates till we get to a point where we think we've reached critical mass, and we ask for your opinion as to whether we want to construct the project now or go for the grant. In terms of the 2018 road program, it's wrapping up. All the flat work is done. Bustleton is working on topsoil and seeding and sod. We have the driveways that we're responsible for completed for the most part, maybe a couple little tweaks. But some of the residents have opted to engage with the contractor to have more of their work done. So those remain to be done. But we expect it to be wrapped up within 2 weeks. And in terms of the 19 road program, we're still waiting for the last survey, and once we get that survey, we'll initiate our outreach to the general public on those roads and have our session with them here, targeting late July for getting authorization to go out to bid.
Okay. Comments or questions? Mr. Jones?
Yeah. You mentioned the cell tower. They're not new cell towers, correct? They're just replacing antennas on the cell towers?
Correct. Those are, and we get them to check for structural calculations, and there's a couple of things we identified, but that's correct. They are not new cell towers. They are simply antenna swap outs, or sometimes they come in because they want to run a conduit from one place to another.
And when we talked about the golf course, we're just talking about the flooding on the golf course. We're not talking about other improvements.
Correct. There are 2 footbridges that affect the flooding, and they would have a big impact on the flood elevations if we were to replace them. So they are in the scope. So you could call that, I guess, an improvement.
They're on the golf course.
Yes, but they are absolutely related to the flood levels for the Blau Court and Blau Road homes. They'll have a direct effect.
And for the 2018 road program, how many people opted to get the sod?
About 20. I think
20 homes?
I think there was 20. There was a fair amount. A lot of folks decided to get the sod upgrade.
And they all get the same grass? I mean, I know there's one that's a little different.
Yeah, there's one that's a little different, but we actually did not disturb very much of that at all. In fact, I believe there's about maybe under a foot gap that we're going to topsoil, and we're going to look at it, but maybe the special grass there will invade that area and take over. We don't have to plant that special seed.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, I saw notes regarding one Ben Fairless and the U.S. Steel. What are they just obviously probably knocking down buildings and just making flat lots for tax purposes, or?
I'm sorry, Mr. Rescue, where?
In the steel mill, U.S. Steel.
Yeah,
one
which
Ben Fairless.
Is it on our list, or?
Yeah, that's where I read it on your list. I'm sorry, but.
The stockpile, if that's what you're talking about, the stockpile?
You're in the steel mill. It looks like there's like 17 acres that's being paved. I don't know what page it was now.
20.
Number
20?
Number 20, page 15.
That's correct. That's known as the NT4 site, so I apologize for not recognizing how you described it. That project's been around for quite some time, and it is. It's for what we've learned is that there's a project in for land development for BGB Steel. That was a company that was operating at the KIPC, and they were cited for operating without development approval. At the same time, the NT4 site development came in, and it was basically an NPDES application that they asked us to review. They need a consistency letter from us in order to obtain their NPDES permit. So we kind of had a feeling that when the BGP folks were cited for operating, they said they were going to move. They didn't want to invest in improvements because they were ultimately go to another site. We believed it was this one. Turned out it was. And so we began to help U.S. Steel help themselves by advising them to anticipate the BGB company coming over. So that might have delayed it a little bit, and we asked them to identify areas for paving because they wanted to come in and just put stone pavement over the whole site. And so we advised them to propose asphalt so that when the BGB folks come over, then they won't have to redo or recreate the wheel. So that is scheduled to be paved. It's not all asphalt pavement. There's going to be some gravel pavement and some asphalt, but they've been struggling trying to get their NPDES permit. And
it seems like a lot of area to.
It's a lot of area. It's and we've identified a lot of stormwater management improvements that they're going to have to do, and they've been working with us to obtain that.
I know at one point they were just kind of knocking buildings down. They were so old and run down. I didn't know if that was what they're doing here.
No, they're prepping up for that future user.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I know I've gotten a couple of questions from people concerned about the Outback Steakhouse and what the progress on that. What's the story there?
It's under construction for sure, and they were cleared to begin construction last month at a pre-construction meeting. And the site they were operating under their demo permit. So we know we made progress on the demolition. We know we made progress on some of the site work. Honestly, I've driven by a couple times but couldn't see in. But I believe that they're fully permitted now and under construction. During the pre-construction meeting, they identified about a 6-month construction period.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions?
No.
No. Any public comment? See no hand. Is there a motion then to approve or accept, I should say, the May 2019 engineering report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Bill list for this month, $1,856,280.53. So we'll say roughly 1.9 million. And of that roughly 1.9 million, almost 1.7 million of the 1.9 is health insurance, other insurances, and payroll. So obviously things like the road program also take up a good chunk of things. It's again a sizable amount. Most of it comes down to just a lot of it, I should say, comes down to payroll, insurance, and projects going on. $125,000 in new vehicles for the police department. Okay, so we're seeing how a lot of it racks up. Comments or questions? I should mention also too, a good amount of this is either escrow, which is paid by developers, and essentially pays the bills for Mr. Jones, Mr. Clark, and other engineers and attorneys when people are doing projects, and state aid, either crime prevention or highway aid, which is another about $33,000. Comments or questions on the bill list?
None.
Okay, is there a motion to pay the bills? $1,856,280.53.
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Brasky?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Executive session, it occurs to me we did not actually summarize our executive session from before our meeting. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Prior to the meeting, the board held an executive session to discuss several personnel matters, a matter involving a collective bargaining agreement, and a matter involving litigation.
Okay. Thank you. We had our police department report. That's up to you, Mr. Mr. Gray?
Yes, just a few items tonight. First item, Township received a letter from Mr. Joe Jones at JEA regarding escrow release number 1 for Accu Fire Fabrication. They have completed a recent inspection of the project and it's determined the amount of $673,227.22 is recommended for release. The board is asked to consider escrow release number 1 for Accu Fire.
Okay. Comments or questions?
No.
None.
Is there a motion then to authorize escrow release number 1 for Accu Fire?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Second?
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Pitts?
Yes.
I just want to announce the following businesses that were approved to open operations in the township during the month of May. They include Celtic Healthcare, located at 225 Lincoln Highway, Suite 149. Malls Auto Service, 100 Central Avenue, Fairless Hills. Dominicana Cargo, located at 225 Lincoln Highway, Suite 18M. Mid-Atlantic Event Group, also at 225 Lincoln Highway, Suite 183. Resource Recycling Management, located at 60 Solar Drive A in Fairless Hills. Fortunoff Backyard Shop, 109 Lincoln Highway in Fairless Hills. And K. Marie Braiding Saloon, 900 West Trenton Avenue, Suite 5 in Morrisville.
Was that Braiding Saloon or Salon?
Salon, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. I thought there was a new saloon in town.
Oh,
Thanks.
no. Thank you for clarifying. I just want to announce the Parks and Rec Department held the first annual 1,000 Lights Lantern Festival this past Saturday at the Falls Township Community Park. The event drew anywhere between 1,500 and 1,800 people. The event ran smoothly and was a success from an operational standpoint. The Park and Rec Board has recommended providing any proceeds the township receives and donating them to the local food pantries. I just want to announce that there are Mylars for signature, and they are for Britain Industries, and also Lauren.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gray. As the board is aware, we became aware of a situation involving property located at 275 Yardley Avenue. The township previously owned this property and in 1996 conveyed it to an individual through the public bidding process. For reasons that are unclear, the deed that actually transferred the property was listed in the name of a partnership rather than the individual's name, and that partnership never existed. That individual has since passed away, so the estate has contacted us to try to obtain clean title to the property. They had asked us originally to file a deed of correction, which we are unable to do. So they anticipate filing an action to quiet title and have asked the township to execute a consent order, which will allow the process to speed up. They do have a buyer for the property, and they cannot sell it until this title issue is cleared up. We are continuing to work with them regarding some of the language in the documents that they've prepared, as well as verifying some of the underlying facts of the matter. But assuming that we are able to verify all that to the solicitor and the manager's satisfaction, we would ask for authorization to execute the consent order in substantially the form that is in front of you this evening.
We have obviously done research. You did find it in the minutes from 1996, there was actually a vote to sell this property.
That's correct. It was done. It was actually done by resolution, and the agreement of sale was attached to the resolution, as is the proper process.
All right, okay. But somehow after that, it just sort of, people just missed
So
lots of steps.
The buyer actually retained the title company, or the abstract company that prepared the deed, and she directed them to put it in this limited family partnership name. For reasons that are unclear to us, that partnership was never created. And she resided in the property from that date, I believe, paid property taxes and all that. It just.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, any comments or questions?
No.
I'm really confused, but this is normal?
No, this is very not normal.
Handling it, though, because I'm kind of just trusting you guys that we're doing the right thing, you know?
Yes, this is the only way to handle it. The deed of correction would probably be the easier way. The estate that's what they wanted us to do, but that would require the township assuming the risk that partnership was not created in some other state. We obviously verified it was not created in Pennsylvania, but we have no knowledge whether it was created elsewhere. We don't believe it was, but this way the estate bears that burden.
So
rather than the
basically, you're
township.
shielding us. Doing it this way shields us legally in
Correct.
case anything goes wrong.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. All right. So,
What do you want us to do?
yeah, you're going to have to restate precisely the legal terminology.
Sure.
All those 50-cent words.
Sure. It would be authorizing the solicitor and the manager to execute a consent order upon verification of certain outstanding items and satisfaction of the language.
All right, I'll make that motion.
There you go. Okay, good. Nice job.
I'll second that.
Second that. Any public comment? See no hands. All in favor? Aye.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, board comment. Mr. Dents?
Yes, my question will be for Mr. Clark. We all know that Elcon has appealed this board's decision, so can you please explain what's happening and what's going to happen and how this process is going to move forward? I know there's a few people in the audience, and I'm sure a lot more watching at home.
Sure. Elcon filed their appeal within the time limits, and as they are required to do, they listed the reasons why they think that the appeal should be granted and that their land development should be granted. They are alleging 2 defects under the municipality's planning code, and they are also alleging that the township acted in bad faith by moving this process along in the manner that we did. It has been assigned to a judge of the Bucks County Court of Common Pleas. The first thing that will happen will have to be the certification of the record. We received that today from the Bucks County Court of Common Pleas. So we will have a certain amount of time to certify the record up to Bucks County. After that happens, there will most likely be a pretrial conference with the judge. And the judge at that time will lay out what is commonly referred to as a briefing schedule and a schedule for oral argument in this matter. There will probably be some preliminary matters involved. As you know, there was a lot of interest from the public and from various groups. Some of them may attempt to intervene in this matter. What that means is they want to become a party to the appeal also, and that will be a preliminary matter that will have to be dealt with along with some preliminary matters that we are reviewing right now. So it is in the hands of a Bucks County judge who will at some point within the next 6 to 9 months will be making a decision on their appeal.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Boraski? Okay. Just a couple things. I first want to wish, Mr. Jones, Mr. Clark, Mr. Gray, Mr. Boraski, Mr. Dents, as well as Mr. Galloway, Mr. Rocco, who aren't here. Very happy Father's Day. A couple days late.
Thank you.
But I felt bad I wasn't able to get to the 1,000 Lantern Festival that was done. I was actually away, but I was glad to hear it went very, very well. It was definitely something I was very interested in seeing, and I'm really glad that Mr. Andrews was able to sort of bring them here. And I'm hoping that the company was pretty impressed with the turnout and with the facilities, and I'm hoping they'll be back at some point in the future. Another event that happened down at the park last week was or a little over a week ago now. Well, yeah, a little over a week ago, was the Delaware Valley Vietnam Veterans Flag Ceremony, which they've done now for 34 years. For about, I think about 16 or 17 of those years have been here in Falls at our park. They do put out somewhere in the area of 65,000 flags, 58,000 and change for every loss, male and female, American loss in Vietnam, as well as those still listed as missing in action, and also those who have been lost in the subsequent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's really very, very elaborate and extensive setup, and it's a really amazing. It's all done by volunteers, people that just show up and help the DV3, as they're called, the Delaware Valley Vietnam Veterans, help them do all this. And so we're proud to have it here. It really is a wonderful event. Told them they're welcome to stay here as long as they want to stay here. You know, every Flag Day or roughly the weekend around Flag Day is when they do it. So it really has become quite an interesting event. And it's something, it may actually be, I think they're looking into this, it may actually be the largest single display of American flags in the world at any one place in time, just in terms of quantity. You know, because so you know, we're, again, happy to host it here. And with that, I wish everybody, now that school's out, make sure you're watching on the streets as kids are out. I want to remind parents as well that there are you know, motorized vehicles which are allowed on the roads that are licensed, and there are motorized vehicles which are not allowed on the roads. So please make sure that your children, if they have some kind of mini bike, dirt bike, you know, things like golf carts, make sure they're behaving in a way that's responsible and legal for their safety. There was a horrible incident, I know, just from a student who's a tech school student who lived in Bensalem back a few months ago, riding a dirt bike in a residential area and collided with a vehicle pulling out of a driveway. It was not the person in the car's fault. They were, you know, obeying the traffic rules, but that there's two young men on the back of that bike, one a Bensalem student, one a tech school student. The Bensalem student was killed. I think he was a senior or a junior, and the tech school student has suffered some really severe injuries, which are likely to be with him the rest of his life. You know, neither of them wearing helmets. You know, so riding a vehicle they should have been riding on a residential road. So we ask you please to be careful, and obviously as operators of motor vehicles, you know, keep your eyes open and you know, be safe. Right? And hopefully everybody has a very good summer. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.